The galaxy was never silent. Ships moved, stations glowed, and traders shouted across channels. But near the edge of Terran space there was a strange kind of quiet, a quiet that made even the bravest alien captain uneasy. The Draxan Empire had sent scouts. They were proud, ruthless, and certain that humanity was weak. To them, humans were latecomers to the stars, barely worth notice. But now, the Draxan scouts whispered about strange readings in the nebula near Sol's border. The reports were always the same. Massive energy spikes, sensors blinded, navigation scrambled. One alien crew claimed they saw a silhouette so large it blocked the stars. But when they returned, their commanders laughed and called it fear. Humans cannot build such a thing, one admiral sneered. They barely survived their own wars. Another added. Yet the reports kept coming, and the quiet near Earth grew deeper. The nebula clouds swirled like a giant curtain hiding something terrible on. A lonely bridge, Captain Varric of the Draxan watched the stars. His claws tapped the console, nervous but defiant. He remembered the warning message from Earth's council. A simple line. Do not cross our borders or you will regret it. Varric had laughed when he first read it. But now, staring into the nebula, he felt a strange weight in his chest. His officers noticed too. The crew whispered about ghosts, about human traps, about a ship that moved without engines. To calm them, Varric ordered a scan. The systems blinked, lights flickered, and then the ship shook. Every console went dark for 2 full seconds. When the screens returned, half the data was burned out, unreadable. What happened? Varric demanded. No one could answer. The text said the nebula emitted interference, but their voices shook. And then, on the forward screen, the stars seemed to vanish. At first, they thought it was dust, a cloud blocking their view. But the shape was too sharp, too defined. It stretched like a wall, black and silent. The crew gasped. Some stepped back, claws shaking. On the screen, glowing lines pulsed across the blackness, blue veins of energy like rivers of lightning. It was no nebula cloud. It was something alive, something made of metal and fury. The humans, one officer whispered. They built it. Varric's throat tightened. He had heard the name in secret channels and mocking rumors, Thunder-Soul. The ship was not supposed to exist. Humanity had never revealed its fleets, never bragged like other species. But here, drifting out of the shadows, was proof that humans had been busy while the galaxy laughed at them. And this proof was terrifying. The Thunder-Soul Battleship was larger than any vessel Varric had ever seen. Its armor was black stone metal that absorbed the starlight. Its glowing veins pulsed with power, each beat like the breath of a monster. And yet, it made no sound. No broadcast, no challenge. The silence was worse than a roar. It was the silence of something that did not need to prove itself. The crew looked at Varric, waiting for his command, but for the first time he had nothing to say. He thought of the council back home. They had mocked humanity, calling them dust-born savages. Now he wondered who the true savages were, because only madness could create a ship that looked like this. Varric's first officer whispered again, "We should leave before it notices us." But the Thunder-Soul did not move. It only hung there in the nebula, glowing faintly, like a predator waiting for prey. The Draxan ship's lights dimmed, systems strained, and still the shadow did not fade. Varric realized something then. The humans had not built the Thunder-Soul to fight battles. They had built it to end wars before they began, a weapon so terrible that even the thought of resisting would die in silence. The captain's claws trembled. He forced himself to stand tall, but his eyes never left the glowing veins of the warship. One thought burned in his mind, one truth he would never admit to his men. Crossing humanity was suicide, and yet, the Draxan Empire was already preparing for war. They had ignored Earth's warning. They would soon learn what the Thunder-Soul truly was, and the galaxy would never forget the moment it fired. The Draxan Empire did not believe in ghosts. They believed in power, numbers, and fire. So when Captain Varric sent his report about the shadow in the nebula, the High Command mocked him. They ordered him to prove his courage. They ordered him to approach the shadow. Varric obeyed, though his chest felt tight. He gathered 3 escort ships, Sleek Draxan hunters with sharp fangs of plasma cannons. Together they drifted closer to the heart of the nebula. The stars grew dim behind the mist, and the air on the bridge felt heavy. No one spoke. Even the hum of the engines seemed weaker. Here the first escort opened a scan. Its beams stretched out like fingers of light. The moment they touched the black silhouette, the ship screamed, every alarm blared. The crew of that escort clawed at their ears as static filled every channel. And then the escort ship went dark. 1 second alive, the next, gone. No explosion, no wreck, no fire, just silence. The Draxan officers gasped. Their voices cracked. Varric's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. He whispered, "What kind of weapon erases a ship without trace?" No one answered. The second escort turned in panic, trying to escape the nebula. Its engines burned bright, throwing light across the mist. And that was when they all saw it. The Thunder-Soul moved. It did not move like a normal ship. There was no burn of thrusters, no ripple of drives. It simply shifted, as if space itself bent to its will. One moment it was a shadow far away. The next it was close enough to fill their screen. The second, escort fired desperately. Beams of plasma shot across the void. They splashed against the Thunder-Soul's armor like rain on stone. The ship did not even flicker. And then, a glow appeared across its black surface, blue lines pulsing like veins. Under skin, the glow built into a storm. A sudden flash erupted. The second escort split in half, vanishing into glowing shards that faded into dust. The Draxan bridge fell silent. The crew stared in horror. Varric's throat was dry. He could taste fear in the air, sharp and bitter. The third escort froze. Its captain refused to move, refused to fire. The ship drifted, caught in the Thunder-Soul's gaze, and then without warning, its weapons shut down, its engines powered off. Every system blinked out. On the bridge, officers screamed that the human ship had reached into their core and stolen their strength. Varric's first officer whispered, "This is no battleship. This is a god." The word hung heavy in the air. Varric wanted to deny it, but the truth pressed on him like the weight of a planet. The Thunder-Soul did not finish the third escort. It left the ship adrift, powerless, humiliated. A warning, not a kill, as if the humans wanted them to spread the story. On his comms, Varric heard the terrified voice of the third escort's captain. "They let us live," the alien whispered, voice cracking. "They chose to let us live." The Draxan crew trembled. Soldiers who once laughed at humans now stared at the shadow with wide, fearful eyes. Their claws shook, their tails curled. Close to their bodies, fear had stripped them of pride. Varric forced his voice steady. "Send this recording to High Command," he ordered. His officers hesitated, afraid even to speak. "Now," he barked, and they obeyed. The recording showed everything. The death of 2 ships, the powerless drifting of the third, the silent might of the Thunder-Soul when the Draxan High Command saw it. Their laughter faded, but their arrogance did not die. Instead, they claimed it was human trickery, an illusion, a weapon stolen from some ancient ruin. They ordered a fleet to gather. They demanded proof that humanity could be broken. Varric stood on his bridge, staring into the nebula. The Thunder-Soul had vanished again, back into the mist, but he knew it was still there. Waiting, watching, silent, but alive, he whispered. To himself, too soft for his crew to hear. Crossing humans was madness. The words tasted like truth. But already the Empire had chosen war, and soon the galaxy would learn what happened when the Thunder-Soul fired in full. Long before the Thunder-Soul revealed itself, humanity had spoken. They had sent a simple warning to the Galactic Council and to the Draxan Empire. It was not long. It was not full of threats. It said only this: "Do not cross our borders, or you will regret it." At the time, the message was laughed at. The Council mocked humanity as farmers and miners with rusty ships. The Draxan Empire declared them weaklings of the dirt. Even smaller powers ignored the words. Certain humans could never challenge empires that had ruled for thousands of years. But humanity was patient. While the galaxy mocked, humans built. They studied war not as a craft, but as survival. They remembered every invasion, every betrayal, every time the strong had crushed the weak, and they swore never to let it happen again. In secret, far from the eyes of alien spies, they built their fleets, ships that carried scars of Earth's old wars in their design, engines that twisted physics, armor that drank fire, weapons that could tear the fabric of space. At the center of this hidden forge was the Thunder-Soul, a ship born not to fight battles, but to end them. The first alien scouts who saw the shadow had spread whispers. Now those whispers turned into shouts across the galaxy. Reports came in of Draxan ships vanishing at the border. The words Thunder-Soul began to appear in every comm channel. Some laughed still, calling it rumor, but others began to feel fear. On Earth, the admirals gathered. The Council of Humanity sat in silence as the recordings from Captain Varick's doomed escorts played. They watched plasma beams splash like nothing against the Thunder-Soul's black armor. They saw the second escort torn to dust. They saw the third ship stripped of power and left to drift like a child's toy. One admiral leaned forward, her eyes cold. "They still do not believe us," she said. Another answered, "They will believe soon." The council voted. The Thunder-Soul would remain in the shadows until the Draxan Empire crossed too far, and then it would speak in fire. Meanwhile, in the Draxan capital, arrogance burned brighter than wisdom. The High War Council gathered. Generals pounded their fists, demanding vengeance for the loss of their ships. Scientists dismissed the Thunder-Soul as a trick. Human illusion, they claimed. Primitive sorcery, others mocked. The Emperor himself waved a claw and declared, "If humans believe they can frighten the Draxan, then we will show them what terror truly is." Orders were given. 200 ships prepared to march into Terran space, dreadnoughts armed with city-killer cannons, cruisers thick with soldiers, carriers ready to unleash swarms of fighters. It was a force meant to erase humanity from the stars. And yet, they marched with laughter, not caution, because in their hearts, they still believed the human warning was a joke. Back on Earth, quiet voices whispered in command halls. The Thunder-Soul's crew prepared in silence. They polished the black armor, charged the storm reactors, calibrated weapons that bent space like cloth. They said no speeches. They held no parades. For them, this was not glory. This was survival. The galaxy did not know that the humans had been planning for centuries. They had built their strength in shadows. While others celebrated their conquests, humanity learned how to make death itself into a weapon. They were ready, and the Draxan were blind. When the Draxan armada finally crossed the border, Earth did not panic. The human fleets did not scatter. Instead, a single transmission was sent. It came from the Thunder-Soul. The voice was calm, cold and final. It said only this: "You were warned." The message echoed across every channel. Some Draxan laughed, calling it weakness, but others felt their throats tighten, because behind those 3 words was something heavier than threat. It was the weight of certainty. Captain Varick, still alive on his ship at the edge of the nebula, received the same message. He closed his eyes, his claws trembling. He knew what the others refused to admit. This was not war. This was judgment. And soon the Thunder-Soul would strike. The Draxan armada stretched across the stars like a swarm of metal beasts. 200 ships, their hulls glowing with power, their cannons ready to fire. They entered Terran space with banners of arrogance. To them, it was the march of victory. To humanity, it was the march of death itself walking into their trap. On the bridge of the Thunder-Soul, the crew stood in silence. They were not loud. They were not proud. Every hand moved with calm precision. Every command came in a whisper. It felt less like preparing for battle and more like preparing for judgment. The alien armada broadcast threats across open channels. "Humans," one Draxan general sneered. "You are children holding sticks. Bow before the Empire, or burn with your world," another declared. But the humans did not answer. The silence of Earth weighed heavier than all their threats. Then the Thunder-Soul stirred. Its black armor came alive with streams of blue light. Veins of energy spread across its surface, pulsing brighter with every second. It was not just a ship. It looked like a storm caged inside metal skin, and when it awakened, even space itself seemed to tremble. The first Draxan cruisers moved forward, eager to strike. Their cannons glowed, their fighters poured out like a swarm of wasps. The galaxy held its breath, and then the Thunder-Soul fired. It was not like any weapon seen before. No missile, no beam, no plasma. It was a storm, a wave of light that bent space like ripples on water. It cut through the void with silent fury. The Draxan cruisers ahead shattered in an instant. 5 ships, each the size of a city, torn apart as if they were made of glass. On Varric's bridge, his crew cried out. Some fell to their knees, the sensors overloaded, the data unreadable. And still the Thunder-Soul glowed, its storm growing stronger. The alien armada roared back in panic. Hundreds of weapons fired at once, beams and plasma tearing across the dark. The void lit up with fire, but when the flames cleared, the Thunder-Soul still stood, untouched. Its black armor drank the light like rain, disappearing into soil. Then the ship shifted. It did not move like prey. It moved like a predator. One moment it was there, the next it was somewhere else. In a single breath, it crossed half the battlefield. Draxan fighters screamed across comms, reporting impossible positions. No thrusters, they cried. It is bending space. The Thunder-Soul storm roared again. Another blast cut through a cluster of ships. 10 gone in a heartbeat. Their wreckage spun into silence, swallowed by the void. The Draxan armada faltered. Officers screamed orders. Captains shouted for retreat. But pride held their generals in chains. Do not flee, the Emperor commanded through the fleet channel. Human tricks will not break us. Yet the truth was written in every alien's eyes. This was no trick, no illusion. This was humanity's answer, a weapon built from centuries of pain and survival, and it was only beginning to show its power. On Earth, the admirals watched the battle through live feeds. Their faces were calm, but their eyes burned with cold fire. One whispered, "Now the galaxy will understand." Another replied, "We told them once. We will not tell them again." The Draxan dreadnoughts advanced, massive war engines with hulls layered in shields. They fired their cannons, each shot strong enough to split moons, but the Thunder-Soul drifted through them like a storm through branches. Every shield failed. Every hull cracked. The dreadnoughts fell one by one, and then silence. The battlefield hung in awe. Ships that had once shaken empires were now dust. The survivors trembled. For the first time, the Draxan admitted fear. Captain Varric stood frozen. His claws dug deep into the armrest of his chair. He whispered, "This is not war, this is execution." His crew nodded, silent, broken. They had witnessed the truth. Crossing humanity was not bravery. It was suicide. The Thunder-Soul did not chase the fleeing ships. It did not roar in victory. It simply returned to silence, its glowing veins dimming, like a storm that had passed but promised to return. The message was clear. The humans had warned the galaxy. Now they had spoken in fire, and the galaxy had no choice but to listen. The battlefield was quiet, but not for long. Wreckage drifted where proud Draxan ships once stood. The Thunder-Soul hung in the void, calm and still, like a predator resting after the kill. But in the distance, the rest of the Draxan fleet gathered. 150 ships still strong, their engines burning with rage. The Draxan generals refused to retreat. Their pride was iron, their arrogance sharper than any blade. They screamed across the fleet channel, "Attack! Swarm them! Numbers will crush this human monster." Their voices shook with anger, but also with fear they could not admit. Captain Varric listened in silence. He knew what his generals did. Not want to face numbers meant nothing against the Thunder-Soul, but the order had been given and the armada obeyed. Fighters poured out of carriers like a cloud of metal insects. Hundreds, then thousands, filling the stars with trails of fire. Cruisers spread in wide arcs preparing to surround the Thunder-Soul. The dreadnoughts advanced, their cannons glowing like suns. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The Thunder-Soul did not move. It waited, silent. Its black hull shimmered with faint blue veins, pulsing like a heartbeat. The Draxan thought it was hesitation, but in truth, it was patience. The swarm struck thousands of fighters, unleashed their weapons, streams of plasma cutting across the void. The light was blinding, filling the nebula with fire. The Draxan cheered, thinking the human warship was buried, but when the fire cleared, their cheers died. The Thunder-Soul was still there, untouched, unbroken. Its armor drank every beam, every blast, like water swallowed by desert sand. The blue veins across its hull flared brighter, and then the storm came. With one pulse, the Thunder-Soul unleashed a shockwave. It rolled across the void like thunder made of light. Every fighter caught in its path froze, engines dead, weapons silent. The swarm fell, apart in seconds, left drifting like broken toys. The cruisers fired in panic, their captains shouting for more power, but their shots curved away, bending into nothing. The Thunder-Soul twisted the battlefield itself, space folded, reality bent, and their weapons betrayed them. One Draxan dreadnought charged. It was massive. The pride of the fleet, its hull layered in shields thicker than mountains, the dreadnought's commander roared, "If humanity built a god, then I will slay it." He ordered a suicide strike. His ship's cannons burned with all their power, aimed at the Thunder-Soul's heart. The blast came, brighter than a star. The nebula shook. Sensors cracked. But when the light faded, the Thunder-Soul still stood. The dreadnought's shields failed in that instant, and the storm answered. The Thunder-Soul's glow erupted into pure fury. A wave of energy tore across the dreadnought. Its shields shattered. Its armor peeled like paper. In a heartbeat, the pride of the Draxan fleet was gone. Nothing left but fragments spinning into the dark. The Draxan fleet wavered. Some ships broke formation, captains begging to retreat, but the generals screamed louder. "Stand and fight. The humans cannot be allowed to win." Madness had taken them. They would rather sacrifice their fleet than admit the truth. Captain Varric closed his eyes. He knew the battle was already lost. He knew the Thunder-Soul was not fighting them. It was teaching them, and the lesson was carved in fire. Crossing. Humanity was suicide. On Earth, the admirals watched in silence. One leaned back and whispered, "They still think numbers will save them." Another replied, "Let them learn." The Thunder-Soul shifted again, moving with impossible grace. It appeared in the middle of the Draxan formation. One blast, and a line of ships vanished. Another blast, and the carriers collapsed, spilling fire into the void. The storm did not slow. It carved the fleet apart piece by piece. And yet the Draxan generals kept sending orders. Charge, charge until nothing remains. Their pride was greater than their reason, their madness greater than their fear. When the last formation gathered, a small cluster of 20 ships, they screamed their final vow across comms. "We will never bow to humans," the Thunder-Soul's storm roared, and the vow died in silence. The battlefield was empty now. Only debris floated where the proud armada had once been. The Thunder-Soul drifted in the nebula's glow, calm once. Again it had spoken not in words but in fire, and the galaxy would never forget. The stars were littered with wreckage. The proud Draxan armada was no more, but still, one last dreadnought remained. Its hull scarred, its shields flickering, yet its engines burned with stubborn rage. On the bridge of that dreadnought, Admiral Kor stood tall, his scales cracked, his claws bloody, but his eyes burned with fire. He knew the fleet was gone. He knew defeat was certain, yet pride chained him to madness. He shouted across the comms, "If I must fall, then I will drag this human demon with me." The Thunder-Soul drifted silently in the void. Its blue veins glowed faint, pulsing with calm rhythm. It did not move. To attack, it did not chase. It simply waited. Like a storm that already knew the outcome, Kor gave his order. "Overload the core," he roared. His crew hesitated, but fear of their admiral was greater than fear of death. The dreadnought's power systems flared, energy spiking beyond limits. It was preparing to explode, a blast large enough to shatter moons, A blast meant to take the Thunder-Soul with it across the galaxy. Alien watchers leaned close to their screens. The Draxon had been crushed, but now came their last strike. If the dreadnought succeeded, maybe the legend of the Thunder-Soul would end here. Maybe humanity's monster would fall, but the humans did not panic. On Earth, the admirals watched in silence. One finally whispered, "Let him try." The dreadnought roared forward. Engines screamed. Weapons fired in fury. The void shook with light. And then the Thunder-Soul awakened. Its veins blazed brighter than ever before. The glow spread across, its black armor like rivers of fire. The storm inside it came alive. It shifted, bending space with every pulse. The dreadnought's weapons curved away. Its blasts swallowed into nothing. Still, Core screamed. "Closer, closer. We end it now." The dreadnought charged with suicidal speed, its core burning seconds from release, but the Thunder-Soul moved like no ship in the galaxy. It vanished. One heartbeat it was there. The next heartbeat it stood behind the dreadnought. Silent, calm, inevitable. The storm unleashed, a wave of pure energy tore through the dreadnought's hull. Armor peeled, decks crumbled, engines died. Core stared at his screen as fire swallowed his bridge. He whispered his last words. "Impossible." And then, his ship was gone. Silence fell. The battlefield was empty once more. No cheers, no voices, only the quiet of space. On Varric's ship, the crew stared in broken silence. They had seen the end of their fleet. They had seen the last desperate strike fail. They had seen a truth that could not be denied. The humans had created something no empire could match. The Thunder-Soul was not just a battleship, it was judgment given shape. Across alien channels, fear spread faster than fire. Soldiers whispered, "Do not fight them. Do not cross them." Others said, "Humanity has become death itself." The words echoed across systems. Every empire heard them. Every ruler felt their claws grow cold. And still, the Thunder-Soul did not boast. It did not send victory songs. It simply dimmed its glow and returned to silence, as if nothing had happened. On Earth, the admirals closed their screens. One leaned back and whispered, "The galaxy now knows." Another replied, "Let them fear, it is enough." But in the hearts of the Draxon survivors, silence was worse than fire, because silence meant the humans had not even fought with all their strength. Silence meant they had chosen to end the battle when they wished. Silence meant the galaxy lived only because humanity allowed it. Captain Varric pressed his claws to his chest, his heart raced, his breath was heavy. He whispered to himself, crossing humanity was madness. And now, everyone in the galaxy understood. The smoke of battle faded into the cold stars. The wreckage of the Draxon fleet drifted like broken bones across the void. No voices came from their channels, no orders, no pride, only silence. And in that silence, the Thunder-Soul floated, calm and waiting. Every empire in the galaxy had seen the battle, every admiral, every council, every spy ship watching from a safe distance. They had all seen 200 warships fall. They had all seen the pride of the Draxon turned into dust, They had all seen the Thunder-Soul silent, patient, and merciless. The Draxon Emperor raged in his palace. He clawed at his throne, demanding more fleets, demanding vengeance. But his generals no longer looked him in the eye. His soldiers no longer raised their heads, because deep inside, they all knew the truth. No number of ships would change what had happened. Crossing humanity was suicide. On Earth, the admirals gathered once more. They did not cheer, they did not smile. They sat in silence, their eyes heavy with the weight of what had been done. The leader of the council spoke softly. "It is finished. The galaxy has seen they will not test us again." But one admiral shook his head. "They will test us, not today, not tomorrow, but one day." His voice was calm, not afraid, only certain. That is why the Thunder-Soul waits, not to conquer, not to rule, but to remind them. And so the message was sent. It was broadcast on every frequency, carried across every channel. Simple, clear, final. This is Terran space. It is off limits. To cross is to die. No threats, no boasts, just truth. The words echoed across the stars. Some laughed nervously, some cursed, but none dared to cross the line again. In the Draxan ruins, survivors whispered in shame. They had seen the Thunder-Soul storm up close. They told their children never to face the humans. They told their officers never to provoke them. And so the fear spread generation to generation until even the proudest warriors grew silent when Earth was named. Captain Veyric stood alone. On the bridge of his damaged ship, he had survived when so many had not. His claws trembled, his heart heavy. He whispered to himself, "They gave us a chance. They let some live, but not out of mercy, out of warning." He knew the humans could have destroyed every last ship, but they chose not to. That choice was more terrifying than fire. It meant humanity had control, not only of weapons, but of destiny. It meant they were strong enough to show restraint, the Mao. Thunder-Soul drifted back into the nebula, its glow fading, its storm quiet once more. It returned to its slumber, waiting in the shadows. A guardian, a threat, a promise. The galaxy never saw it again. Not fully, but its shadow remained in every star map, every council chamber, every nightmare. Legends grew. Some said the Thunder-Soul was not a ship, but a spirit of Earth itself. Others claimed it was alive, breathing with the rage of humanity. A few whispered that there were more, hidden in other nebulae, waiting. No one truly knew, and that mystery was its greatest weapon. Years passed, but the border of Terran space stayed untouched. Caravans moved around it, fleets avoided it, explorers turned away from it. No one crossed, because no one had forgotten. And when young soldiers of alien empires asked their elders, "Why do we fear humans so much?" the answer was always the same. Because once the Thunder-Soul fired, and we learned what suicide truly means. The stars grew quiet again, but beneath that quiet, the storm still waited, not for vengeance, not for conquest, but for the day someone else forgot the warning, the day another fool would cross the line and remind the galaxy why Terran space was off limits forever.